G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome everyone. Today I'm interviewing Ryan Lim from Vibestown, based here in beautiful and today sunny Hobart, Tasmania, Australia. Thanks for your time today, Ryan.
Hey Troy, good to be here, mate.
Let's start with how we know each other. That's a friend of mine, Sam Reed, that you've known a little bit over the years. He's one of the co-founders of Willie Smith's Organic Cider. So he put us in touch when I asked if he knew any other great business owners that might be relevant to come on.
Yeah, he did indeed. And we've met for the first time yesterday over a beer.
We did, yeah.
Catch up, so that was a good start.
Yeah, and Sam was on the cast, episode 8, right at the start on Willie Smith's Organic Cider. If anyone wants to check that one out, it's a great podcast. Tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
So our company is called Vibestown Productions. There's 3 directors involved, myself, Jesse Higgs and Alec McClelland are the 3. We are basically a event organisation. We organise music festivals mainly. We do arts festivals as well, and we also contract out to other existing events around Tasmania to help them with human resources or just, site production management, anything like that.
Wow, times would have been pretty fucked in the last 18 months then for you guys.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shit show. We were lucky in some aspects that we had our major festival Party in the Paddock that we decided to wrap up in 2020. So we called that in about November 2019, just before everything went to shit. And it worked out that we were able to just deliver that event with only about 4 to 5 weeks before lockdowns happened. Yeah. So we're very lucky in that aspect that we sort of were able to come through COVID with a bit of support and just sort of sit and wait patiently and then come through the other end, where this summer we delivered the Basin concert, which has been a bit of a dream of ours for about 12 years, being such an iconic event that ran for nearly 30 years from 1970, I think it was. Mm-hmm. We came out the other end of COVID and were able to deliver that event, which was great.
And the Basin concert, for context of people outside Australia, that's in northern Tasmania in Launceston in the basin of the Gorge, which is a beautiful walk if anyone's popping in there. And with Party in the Paddock, I never went, but I heard great things about it. And it's good that you went out on a high. You called it before COVID turned up. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, look, it's my main sort of body of work that we've done with Vibestown. And the reason I got involved with Vibestown in the first place, or why we created Vibestown. So it was... it was 2015. I was coming back to Launceston after living in Hobart for quite a few years, working in production, doing lighting, sound, and sort of stage work. And I come back with the intention of wanting to look at starting a music festival in the north. It had been sort of a dream of mine. At this stage, I was about 21 years old.
Yep.
And I'd seen this Party in the Paddock that happened a few years in a row. And we were sort of friends of friends. And in fact, the paddock was dedicated to a mutual friend of ours who had passed away a few years earlier, Chris Horrocks. And so we were brought together with that death and sort of made us closer friends, I guess. So I came into the event in 2015 and saw basically how much potential it had. It was a great little festival with about 1,200 people there. It had so much creativity, such an amazing community in it. And just so many passionate people. You can't buy that stuff with no matter how much money you've got. It was something that was really, I could see a really solid foundation there, but I could see a gap in the operations, which was something that I felt I could bring, which was, real sort of management and just pulling together, making it a sleek operation so we can deliver and grow it. So that year, it was actually at the after party of that year. So I went up to Jesse, who he's now my business partner, and I said to him, he was completely exhausted and looked like he was just about to have an anxiety attack after the crazy weekend ahead of us. I said, "Hey, mate, I think I'm really interested in coming to talk to you about coming to be involved, and I think I'm your guy." And I sort of gave him the spiel, and the wildcat he is, he just sort of looked at me. He's like, "Hell yeah, man! I mean, let's do this." And the rest is sort of history. We created Vibestown about 5 months later, the company. We shared 50% stakeholdership and off we went. yeah, so yeah, it was a great start to the business and a pretty wild beginning.
I think that's a good tip for anyone interested in getting into an existing business. Pitch to your potential new business partner at 3 a.m. when they're exhausted.
Yeah.
And just on that, your final year was last year, 2020, Party in the Paddock. How many, so you went from 1,200 punters, how many in that final year did you get along?
We had 10,000 people on site, which was about
Yeah.
8,500 tickets with, you got comps and
Yeah.
sort of stuff that comes along with it. But yeah, it really grew into a monster. The original Party in the Paddock was actually my business partner, Jesse Higgs's birthday. He decided he wanted to have a party. So it was in the paddock and he called it Party in the Paddock. Put great. A bunch of round hay bales on their side, made a stage and put some fly decks on it and had a little stage. And that was the sort of beginnings of how it started. So to see where it's grown on its last show was, 5 stages, over 80 bands, huge attendance and just a huge love from the whole community. So it was really, really special to see it out and actually have a chance to say goodbye to it like we did.
I love hearing the etymology of how concerts or events like this happen. As we were talking about over a beer last night, I've been to 5 Glastonburys, and I really love how that monster started. I think it's 180,000 people a year that go to that pre-COVID, obviously. It was 1973 with the milk prices, dropping off a cliff. Michael Eaves, I think is his name, was the founder and decided to hold a concert in his paddock there in Somerset, beautiful Somerset, and sell milk retail to people that turned up. I think it was a free concert in the first year and then just grew from there to what it is now. It's just massive. They still drive around with a tractor and sell milk or give it away to people that go to the event every year. It's, really nice.
Nothing like some nice warm milk.
Yeah, that's right.
Festival.
So you were 21 back in 2015 when you started out. Sounds like a great story.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. No. So I was 21 in 2011. So
right.
Wrong, but anyway.
So you're 25 in 2015 when you jumped on board. Do you have any key numbers that illustrate the growth of the business since you got involved there in 2015?
Yeah, absolutely. So back then, the year before I was actually involved, the festival grossed $300,000 in total revenue. In 2020, our final figures were just a bit over $3.5 million in gross revenue.
Wow, that's awesome.
There was some massive growth within the first 2 years of being involved, and it really was honestly quite a fucking struggle to try and keep up. We created a monster, a great monster it was, but as soon as we got Triple J on board in 2016, it just took us to a whole entire other level. We're on a national platform.
Yep.
We had every band wanting to play at our event. We had everyone wanting to come. And trying to manage that growth from basically starting a brand new company to be quite frank, none of us knew what the fuck we were doing. Like we were
like most business owners.
We were young people wanting to throw a festival and then realised how much responsibility is involved. That's how it started.
Yep.
But I think that's why the culture and community built around our business is so strong and has continued to stay so strong because it come from, a group of mates wanting to throw a party. And then it's turned into now that it's a group of mates who are all now professionals in our field and deliver, high-end professional festivals across the state.
So back then, 2015 to 2020, this was the only event you'd organise each year. And so it pretty much took you the entire year full time to you guys working on this to get it up.
Yeah, well, look, it was our primary event, definitely. We had also, sorry, I'll say that again. It was our primary event. It was probably about 90% of our work.
Mm-hmm.
We also I do manage directly Junction Arts Festival as a production manager, and I've done that for about 6 years. But as soon as we started growing Vibestown, we just had more and more interest. So we teamed up with the fellas from Luca Brasi, and we helped them put together their festival called Till the Wheels Fall Off every year.
Mm-hmm.
We also ran a few New Year's Eve events for the city of Launceston. So with the signature event for Launceston for a couple of New Year's Eves in 2016 and 17, I believe. Mm-hmm. So we've sort of based out and done a few other events over the time, but Paddock was definitely the most energy was put into that.
Yep.
I think probably, honestly, that's one of the reasons why we decided to end it on such a high as well, because we were pretty emotionally exhausted from it.
Yeah.
And it really does take a lot. And the responsibility for 10,000 people in a paddock on a hot, fiery February date with everything against you is a pretty big responsibility, and it's pretty it's pretty well known for growing some grey hairs out of all our heads. So,
and so now the strategy is to kind of do smaller events around Tasmania. You've just moved to Hobart from Launceston.
Yeah, correct. We've just opened up an office down south, so we're operating both sides of the state now. We did have an office up in Boran, but they're moving back down here soon, as soon as they can get back down to Tasmania. So, yeah, our aim is to really sort of expand out on multi-day non-camping festivals. That's our next strategy.
Yep.
We can see that, there's definitely plenty of opportunity across the whole state to do that. And it's also just the amount of effort to do a similar event that's not camping, that's 72 hours of people on your site is just dramatically less. So that's what we want to focus on for a few years, and really just dip our toes into a few different genres and different types of events, just to sort of expand anything that we can, I guess. And this is helping us grow. Doing the Basin concert this year really shown us that we have so much growth we can do within this company, and we have all the right people around us. For the first time ever, every department is just so strong and solid. We're just ready to roll out as many events as we can see possible.
Yeah, great. And how many full-time equivalents when you joined in 2015 were there, and what's the number now?
Probably about 0.3 full-time employee. When we started, it was very much come in, do it. There's a lot of people just wanting to be involved and make the thing happen, and that's what got it off the ground. Now we're at 4.5 year round, and we have quite a few large projections over the next 24 months. So I'd be seeing that probably up to 8 in that 2 years' time.
Great. When was the moment you felt like you'd succeeded?
In a personal way, I guess, in a sort of personal and business way, the moment I was just, it was a fuck yeah. We sort of have this saying in Vibestown, it's like, if it's not a fuck yeah, we don't do it. But a massive moment for us was, I believe it was the 2018 paddock. And our friend Chris, who had passed, his mother had offered us some of his ashes to actually spread out at the paddock, which was a really big thing for everyone. So we organised on the Saturday. We had Group Love playing, a band from the US. They were coming in, and they were about an hour away. And so we got everyone together and had about 60 to 70 of his closest friends there, and a few people spoke. During that day, it had been pissing down. I mean, absolutely pissing down with rain.
Yep.
There were mudslides. People were just saturated, and there was just this crazy wild energy around the whole entire festival. It wasn't dangerous. It was just like everyone was just having a great time, regardless of what was happening. So we were sitting there having this, this thunderstorm had just rolled through, everything happened. And literally, as soon as we threw the ashes and started spraying them, this giant rainbow, giant rainbow just come over the top of the stage, and thunder and lightning started striking over Ben Lomond, which we could all see in the background.
Wow.
And it was just one of those moments being like, fuck yeah, this is wild. This is why we do this. This is why we do it. Look at all these people around us. Look at everyone around this festival having the greatest time ever. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. It was that sort of moment.
Yeah, great.
And it was great because I went and picked up Group Love from the top of the event because we couldn't get any vehicles down because it was all just paddocks and bog, so we were using four-wheel drives. And I actually, straight after that, went and picked them up, and I just couldn't hold it back. They're like, why are you smiling? Were you so happy? I was just like, I've got to tell you the story. And I told them, and they were in tears. They were just like so overwhelmed from, the passion involved in this event, and they really got a deep understanding. And they went on to continue to headline that Saturday night out there, and they said on stage, they said, this is the craziest fucking festival we've ever been to. This energy here is crazy.
Yep. And
they come off stage and they were just so thankful to be there. And it was just really awesome to hear, a band of, that big saying that this is the best festival they've played at, or this is like the best energy they've seen at a festival ever, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, great. What does success look like to you?
It sort of grows on from that answer just then, I guess. I really get a kick out of seeing, other people enjoy something that we've curated and made. So I think as long as, we're keeping the Tasmanian people on with our journey and they're enjoying what we're providing for them, I see that as success.
Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
Slow down.
Yeah. That's amazing. You took the number of punters almost eightfold in 5 years. That's huge. I know Triple J, which here in Australia is the Australian Broadcasting Commission. It's like a radio station for the younger people, I guess. And for them to mention Party in the Paddock obviously would have been a massive thing. But any other advice around marketing for?
Yeah, well, I guess from our perspective, we really work on selling the experience more than what the bands are or what we're providing. Like we really want to, whenever we're marketing, whatever we're doing, it's about how people will feel and the feeling they'll get. Because whenever you think back of, I'm sure you can remember back at a festival and that sort of euphoric feeling, or having just like an awesome time around your friends or watching a band you love. If you can find that market and that find a way to deliver that to the audience, it's bloody gold, really.
I think I can only remember 4 of the 5 Glastonburys.
That's pretty good still. That's pretty good.
4 or 5 days. At least 3 of those were in the mud. 2 were really sunny. They were great. But yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. It's an amazing feeling. How did you fund the business?
Well, we started off with nothing really. The event before me coming on board didn't make any money, and Jesse, my business partner, he had a overdraft of about $25,000, I believe it was at the time, and I had pretty much no cash, but I had access to some. So I said to him, "Well, look, all we need to do is pay the deposits on the bands. We'll get these bloody tickets on sale, and we'll only spend what we need to until the event happens."
Yep.
So we went in. I got a $10,000 loan from the bank. And Jesse used his overdraft, and we literally funded the business off that. We didn't get any sort of major startup funding. The banks wouldn't touch us any more than just an overdraft.
Yeah.
When you're trying to say to any sort of financial institution, "Hey, we run music festivals, and there's heaps of risk involved, but we want $200,000 so we can get rolling," there's not a chance.
Yeah.
There's not a chance that they'll fund you. But we sort of moved in through that. So through the years, we've got now a great relationship with our ticketing company. So I can call them up and ask for some large sums of money, and they'll forward them to us for short term, just to get things up off the ground. And we've also had some private investors over the time as well that have been involved and invested and just believed in what we did. And for them, I'll be forever thankful, because they kept us afloat in some really hard times. And that's why we're still here today.
And how did you find those investors, or did they come knocking?
The main investor, she was actually a dear friend of ours and also a dear friend of Chris's as well. And she just happened to be interested and able to. And just really, it was quite interesting. She had a lot of her advisors, she had financial advisors saying, "Do not invest in this. I've looked at their stuff. I know you believe in what they're doing, but don't do it." And she still did. So massive hats off to her for believing. And it was all paid back and hunky dory. So that's just the risk you have to take sometimes when you believe in something.
That's it. No risk, no return.
Exactly.
If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Without a doubt. Even in COVID times, just the reward I get out of it, and the reward that people we employ get out of it as well, is just so worth it. I think we've got a great industry down in Tasmania. Has been oversaturated at times, but I think that gets filtered out pretty easily. The good operators stay afloat, and the bad ones sort of dwindle away. But I think, all in all, Tasmania is really strong, especially right now. We are working a lot with public health and the government, trying to get some more planning going forward for COVID, because we've got a real opportunity here to be pioneers in the event space in COVID world. Tasmania does. And if we can pull our finger out on a few more aspects, that might still be achievable, I believe.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey, so our audience can learn from it?
Yeah, the most stressful point was probably one of the years, which was it was probably around 2017 or 2018. We almost sold out. We were very close to selling out, but we didn't quite get there. And we've never compromised on cutting the budgets back or production value back or bands back. based on, we need to make money. Money was never really a factor. We didn't give a shit if we made money, to be honest with you. And going into that festival that year, that really was a bit of a mental struggle, knowing how much we had lost already, going into it, knowing there was nothing else we could do, but we still had to deliver it and push on. And we, in fact, that year threw another $50,000 at last minute, upping the festival and making a better experience, because we saw the value in making sure long term that the festival was still growing and still had momentum and had really good engagement with their audiences. So that was definitely a really, really hard year. And coming out of that, it's been 3.5 years of really successful time since then. So looking back then, it was it has an effect on your whole entire life, everything. Yep.
What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
Delegation. Absolutely. I think that's the answer for a lot of small businesses, really.
Yep. Was for me early on, yeah.
Yeah, and it's starting to get to a point where, this year I really am trying to let go of a few things. But it's, I always feel like always having your finger on the pulse is really important. But certainly to grow to that next level, you've got to be able to just let it go and let someone else make the mistakes you made 5-10 years ago and learn that process, because they're not going to learn just you telling them. You've got to accept that that's a part. And if you're invested in that person and your company, you need to allow them to grow as well and learn from the same stuff.
Yeah, and they're going to feel more engaged and trusted as well.
Absolutely.
Plenty of benefits. What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
I think a really hard thing to work with is, especially when you're in this sort of entertainment industry, a lot of people have presumptions about who you are or what your company does. Some people just like to hate you because you're successful. So that was something that I, have sort of learned to deal with, I guess. And that's just the personality of being in the event industry is, you sort of are in the limelight, and you've got to be prepared to understand that, that's a consequence of the industry you're in, I guess.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
I have entrepreneurship into my blood. So my dad is a massive entrepreneur. He has a pretty wild story, which I'll tell you briefly on now to give you the context of what my drive is and what I sort of grew up seeing. But my dad owned his own company, for most of his commercial life. It was a bitumen spraying company. So he just saw at the age of, he was like 21 years old, him and a fella made a company called Tarmac, and they started selling bitumen on roads. That's all they did. And they built it up to a massive fleet of 40 trucks and 80 employees and all that sort of jazz. But he's a pretty crazy particular character. And a bit into the business, he decided that he was a bit bored and wanted to do a big project. He loves doing big things and takes big risks, and that's certainly something he's taught me to do, which is a blessing and a curse, I think.
Yep.
But he went out and actually designed a 16-metre tall T-Rex robotic dinosaur.
Wow.
And he went out at the time, went to the bank, and they sort of laughed at him. And then when they realised he was serious, they gave him $1 million loan in 1984.
Jeez.
And he built this. He spent 4 years with like 60 people involved. He engineered the whole entire thing himself. And he made this giant, crazy T-Rex dinosaur, I guess. And it was a huge hit. It was a massive hit. It was travelling up in Queensland. It was down here for a bit. And then it went to the Launceston show. It went to the Adelaide show, which is huge over there. And they had it in a tent sort of showing it off. And it was basically on the door knock of about to get this giant US tour deal over a 4-year period, but also a massive film deal. Because this is back then, Jurassic Park wasn't even out. This was pre that. This was like clay figurine dinosaur movie sort of thing. So this was a massive deal at the time. And it sort of all ended in an absolute shit show where Dad had come home. He'd been out on job all day to tell his partner at the time, which is now my mum, that they'd got this movie deal, this massive, huge movie deal. And she was there to greet him, tell him that she got a phone call that the dinosaur had burnt to the ground when they were dismantling the tent.
No.
He recalls throwing his phone through the wall, I think, is the way the story goes. Went over there. It was fucked. The whole thing was gone. His whole life's work was done. Then he proceeded in a 10-year legal battle where he represented himself. in the Adelaide court, in the High Court, against 3 judges, and he was awarded $31.25 million in compensation, wow, which was the biggest payout to an individual in Australian law history.
Yep.
But then it got appealed. The big boys got away with it. It got reduced to 10 million, blah, blah, blah. He ended up with essentially pretty much nothing in the end.
Yeah.
So I grew up with that through my whole life, sort of seeing from the start to the finish and seeing big risks, big rewards, ups and downs, and it was sort of just got ingrained into me, I guess.
Yeah.
From there, so yeah, I guess that's where my original sort of plans come from.
No, I have never had anyone answer the question anywhere near like that, but thank you.
I can't even remember what the original question was, to be honest with you. I was just went on a bit of a rant.
Yeah, why you love what you love most about growing a small business. That, I think you've covered it.
I think it's the risk. Yes, it's the risk. Yeah. I love the risk. I'd much rather do that than be bored.
What's been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
I heard actually a really great quote. I don't know who it was from not long ago, but they said, I wish someone told me when I was 20 that I would feel this good when I was 40. And I think I always had this idea that everything had to get done now. And it was just, I want to do this side of summer and I want to do this. It's not the case. Just fucking sit back and relax. Yeah. Like, you're not going to be some old decrepit person when you're 40 or 50 or whatever. You've got heaps of time to achieve all the things you want to achieve. And it's going to be much more rewarding in the long term to wait it out and wait your turn and make sure you make the decisions not on excitement, but on strategy around your business.
Yeah. What is the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Always be across the figures. That's probably one of the first business advice I got from my dad's cousin, who owns a gold mine and all sorts of jazz up in South Australia. Very successful businessman. And I sort of asked him when I first started out 6 or 7 years ago, what's the one thing I should have maintained? He's like, never let other people do your books until you absolutely have to.
Yep.
Always look at the invoices every single time, because as soon as you get out of touch of that, you get out of touch of what's happening in your business, and it's opening you up to some massive fuck ups.
Yeah. Jump over to growasmallbusiness.com and leave your details to get a short 2-minute email I send on Fridays to help small business owners like you become better leaders. I include some reading or professional development resources I've discovered in the last week. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
We've had a pretty crazy run with staff. We've got some of the best staff ever, and they're friends, obviously. But we've had some pretty crazy cats across the journey as well. So we started off with one fella who we called Crazy Sam. He might even listen to this podcast, who knows? But he was just on another planet. He was wild, and he's come up with these crazy ideas, and he had so much drive and passion and stuff, but it just wasn't right for the event in the end. So we parted ways with him, but we've had some great people over the time. We've had this chick we brought over from America to help us at the very beginning, and she really helped bring she really helped us package up how we worked with internally and how we communicated. And so she was great, but she sort of moved on pretty quickly. It just wasn't quite working out. But you sort of get these pockets of people that come in and out of your life, especially when it's around festival time, and some people you just get so many different personalities, and you've got to just pull in what you can from those right people and learn from it and then move on, I guess. So yeah, but we've had some great wins. Karina Walton, who's our operations manager, she's been with us for years now. And she's just so important to the operation of the company. And she really keeps us fellas in check as well.
Yeah.
And pulls our heads in when we start daydreaming too long, I think. So
what are some things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one. I think, I was blessed with a very good start of it. I think giving everyone a platform to be able to express their ideas and giving them time to actually express them is really important. And I've definitely been guilty of that in the past, where you've got to let the process go all the way through. So everyone is heard. They've got an opportunity to speak. And, we really do work. There's not really a huge hierarchy within our thing. We're all quite equal but we have our own departments, I guess. But it really is always an open conversation, and everyone's welcome to have an opinion. I think that's really important, keeping people, motivated as well and wanting to feel a part of the experience.
Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Balance, I'm terrible at it. The boys have seen me go through more relationships than I do have business partners over the last 6 years. So I'm an absolute sucker for really prioritizing work.
Yep.
But I guess in that sense, I feel it's a bit different to maybe some other people where this is literally my passion, my hobby, my life. I love it. I love every single part of it. So it doesn't really feel like work a lot of the time. And I really do have that drive embedded in me. So I'm becoming better at it. And I think, like we spoke before, the delegation is definitely important. But yeah, I think I'm 31 years old now. I'm starting to move into that next realm of my life where drinking and partying isn't as important. Like I was telling you yesterday, I'm nearly 4 months sober at the moment because I just want to, that decision is to focus on business. That's the pure decision.
Yep.
Is based upon that, I believe. So, yeah.
How much professional development have you invested in yourself over the years?
Look, not as much as I would have liked to. We often joke that pie in the paddock was our university degree.
Yeah, love it.
Very fucking expensive university degree, but it was one nevertheless. So, I think we probably learn a lot on the job, or we move ourselves into spaces within our job where we can better ourselves, or working with different festivals or bring in other people who can bring in skills. So it might not be necessarily a devoted improvement time or a conference or a workshop or whatever, but we certainly do in our own way, I believe. Yeah. And we try to keep up with, some different, just even if it's an online course around discrimination,
yep.
Or equality and all those sort of things. Like we really do try and keep a conscious effort to keep on top of that. And it's always an open discussion, around what our ethos is and how we want to support, the whole community and how that sort of works in with our business. So it's a forever evolving thing, I believe.
You mentioned your uncle was a mentor. Have you had any other mentors or coaches along the way?
My dad certainly has been a big part, even though he can drive me wild sometimes. But he's always been there, and I'll tell him about an idea, or if I'm buying a block of land, or I'm looking at doing this side project or something, and we'll talk about it for 20 minutes, and he'll be devil's advocate. But then he'll always come back to me a few days later and have this like 4 or 5 page well thought out document that he's typed up, and the full analysis is from the top to the bottom and how this looks and what his opinion on is that market. So he's been really great to be that back and forth mentor in that aspect. And I'm sure I've had a few along the way. Yeah.
And you have a board of directors at the moment. Do you guys formally meet? If so, how often?
So the three of us as business partners, which we're all equal now. So Jesse and I started off as 50-50 and we brought Alec in a few years later on. So we split at 33. We're all directors. We don't have too often formal. We have our AGM with our candidate once a year.
Yep.
But we're constantly talking every single day anyway. So we really feel like it's, and we really like to include like Corinne as well in most of our major decision making.
Yeah.
She's just as important as we are, the way we see it. And, as we grow as a team as well, that will expand out as well. And we'll probably get to the point, where we will need to look at having some sort of board of directors, but it's still a few years away, I believe.
Yeah. All right, Ryan, we're on to our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
The hardest thing that I found, which is, I guess, a bit of an opposite, is growing too fast. So I think when you start off a business, you have all these ideas of what it's going to look like, and you sort of think what's going on. You don't usually, and it's usually when you reflect back, you don't know what's going on. So I think you can plan till the cows come home, but it's sometimes might just go in a different direction.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
I don't read books. No. So I use an app called Blinklist.
Oh yeah, that's great. It's
great
short. It summarizes key books and give you the main points, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. So I use that a lot. I just have a subscription on that, and going to bed, traveling up the Midlands, even walking 10 minutes to work. You can get, one blink list is basically maybe the top 5 to 10 points of a really powerful book or podcast or something, and they condense that into a really easy way to listen. So I find that's the best way I can learn. I just I'll get halfway through a book and won't commit to it, and maybe we'll forget halfway through what the hell I'm even learning. So for me, that's great. I just write down lists, and as soon as I hear it, I write it down, and it stays in my brain, and I can sort of carry that forward. Yeah.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development, apart from Blinkist?
Yeah, that's probably the only one I use.
That's it. One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
So the main tool we use is Google Suite. It's just a really, really comprehensive, easily accessible program for anyone. So we have a lot of external people we work with, whether it's PR or marketing or distribution, and bookings, all that sort of stuff. And they're all, they're all using different programs and different things. So we find that Google Suite is just a really central, easy way to communicate. You've got your chat functions, so you're not clogging up your emails constantly with just getting CC'd into crap. You just make chat rooms.
Yeah,
it's got everything. Most people use it and they're used to it. But Google Docs, Google Sheets, it's just it's awesome. A game changer from when we originally were starting, and you were using Dropbox, and there was multiple things, the same versions in there. It was just clunky as all hell. So, it can become a real clusterfuck, can't it? Absolutely.
Finally, my favourite question: what would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
What I'd tell myself on day one of starting out: don't fucking assume anything.
We know what assumptions make of us. Yeah.
Oh, just don't do it. I think it's bitten us in the ass multiple times over the years, and we've definitely learnt from it since then. But but also in saying that, be ready to make mistakes. That's another thing. Like, I think I wouldn't have it any other way. At one point we're $500,000 in debt, and we're screwed. Yeah. But if I didn't learn all those lessons and we were just super successful straight off the bat, I'd be a little shit, and I wouldn't have the understanding of, what it meant and how it felt to be there, and to know you never want to fucking go back there again. So I think, just be prepared to make mistakes. It's fucking fine. It's a part of the process.
I think it's a Henry Ford quote, and he says, "Success is a poor teacher." It's true. It's true. I've had a few. I said that to a friend that I mentored for a while, and his first business hit it out of the park. 2.5, 3 years later, sold out for many millions of dollars. Even though when I started mentoring, I said, before we start, catch up once a month for a beer, but just let you know I don't believe in your product, don't understand your market, don't think this is going to work. And 2.5 years later, he turns up having sold the business. But I did say to him, don't get too cocky, because success is a poor teacher. And he found that. He reiterated that to me a year or so later, when he found the next couple of businesses he started didn't obviously knock it out in the park. Yeah.
Assumptions.
That's it. Well, thanks for your time today, Ryan. I think the audience got a shit ton of value out of what you shared with us. Over 10-fold top line growth in those 5 years before you shut down Party in the Paddock. Now you're diversifying. It's great. Really good journey, and some really interesting stories in there as well. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's been great to sort of look back and chat and think about it all. It's it's been a wild ride, and we really feel like we're just getting started. So we're very excited for the future.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.